joining us again on the We Are West Ham podcast. And for the first time since we met in person very recently is Football.London's West Ham correspondent, Tom Clark. Most of you may know him, as I've mentioned already, as the bloke who wears the lucky hat to West Ham games. He hasn't got his hat on tonight, but I'm hoping that doesn't mean his podcast appearance is going to go to pot. But Tom, it's brilliant to have you back on the show, mate. I understand you've been to the under-23s this afternoon.
Yeah, it was with the winter break coming up this weekend. It was nice to get to a game and a chance to do something a little bit different, to go and kind of have a look and see who looks like they could be on the cusp of getting into the senior squad or getting a few minutes of the 11 that started. I think it was 7 of them have made a senior debut now. Armstrong Oko-Flex has been on the bench for, I think, 6 of the last 8 games, and then 3 others who haven't made senior appearances. But just they're going so well. They're top of the Premier League too. Yeah, they lost this afternoon against Leicester, but they are, they're absolutely flying against, the likes of Manchester City, who have so much money in their academy, but West Ham are above them in the league. So yeah, just going down, have a look, seeing what the under-23s are up to, and there's some prospects there for sure.
So Jonesy, like most fans, absolutely loves seeing a youth player come through and do well. I think it would be fair to say that in the past he has perhaps got a little bit too overexcited with the potential of some. Come on, James. Come on.
I don't know about that.
Is there anyone then, Tom? Like, we've seen Sonny Perkins. We know he's sort of coming on and developing quite well. You mentioned Oko-Flex there, which a couple of my mates were very excited about, purely based on that he would officially have the coolest name in the entire Premier League, was he to make it. But names aside, just on footballing ability, is there anyone in that side, that group at the moment, who genuinely could go on and do what, Declan Rice has done, Ben Johnson's done, and make their way into the first team and become a regular at West Ham?
Well, first of all, I challenge you to pronounce Armstrong Oko-Flex's full name. I've got it up in front of me, and it is something else. It's Armstrong Inya. I reckon it's Ekizola Chukwu Oko-Flex. It is something special. But genuinely, I think he's probably. It's funny because he hasn't made his senior debut yet, but he was the one today, and he didn't have a particularly good game, but there were just a couple of flashes. And I think he might be. I think he might be ready, and I've actually got a piece from this afternoon, which will be going up tomorrow morning. And I'd say I think he would be a better option off the bench than Yarmolenko. So I genuinely think he might be which also isn't saying an awful lot about Yarmolenko.
You'd be better off the bench, Tom, for God's sake. Drag you out of the press box, mate.
Well, I mean, and Oko-Flex would have played in Europe but because of homegrown eligibility rules, he wasn't included in the Europa League A squad. And so when it came to that dead rubber, he wasn't able to get any minutes because he's not a homegrown player. He's obviously he's played with Celtic and he's Irish as well. So otherwise he would have made his debut. I think he will be one to, whether he's one to make the impact of Declan Rice, I think that's going way too far. I don't think there'll be another player like that from the West Ham Academy for a generation. That's no slight on the others. That's just how good Deck is at the minute. But Oko-Flex, I do think will do something special at some point. Sonny Perkins, 17, scored a cracking goal today. He's only 17, and I think he'll start. Well, unless the striker comes in the next week or so, I think there's a high chance he starts the next match against Kidderminster with Antonio getting a breather after the international break. And the other one is Harrison Ashby. I think he's a real prospect at right back, but the problem he's got is he's got Soufal and Johnson ahead of him. And so he stepped up and he played against Spurs in the Carabao Cup when Soufal was suspended. Yeah, Soufal was suspended and Johnson was injured, and Ashby came in, did perfectly well.
He was brilliant. Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, and he was also very good in the Europa League game with against Dinamo.
Zagreb, wasn't it?
Yeah,
the Zagreb game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he is a real prospect, but the issue he's got is he's got 2 very good players ahead of him in the pecking order there. So how his minutes go will kind of depend on that, I think, a little bit. But he's a good footballer. So those are my 3 from there. The goalkeeper didn't have a great game today. Elise gave a absolute shocker of a back pass in the second minute to concede the goal. But then, as the captain, he then stepped up and he was a good player. Whether Whether he's ready for the first team or not, I wouldn't have thought so, not just yet. But I did think those three, Perkins, Oko-Flex, and Ashby, they're all there or thereabouts.
Nice.
What's the feeling around Conor Coventry at the club at the moment? Because he had a really strong pre-season, didn't he? I think he scored quite a few goals as well. And there was talk that was probably why the club weren't going to sign a central midfielder, because Moyes was probably going to promote him. He goes on loan to Peterborough, doesn't work, and now he's on loan at MK Dons. Is there a feeling that maybe he's not going to make it at the club, or is it that's why they're sending him out on loan, is because they believe that maybe next year he's going to be ready?
I think he needs some regular games. I'd agree with you. He was very good in pre-season. He was one that I picked out in the pre-season matches as looked like he was there or thereabouts with making it through. And then they had the deal with Peterborough for ages, and it was all waiting on Crowell coming in or a midfielder coming in. And once it was a Crowell who came in, then it was a domino effect. He went straight away, and they were really disappointed with the Peterborough loan. It just didn't work out. He didn't get the minutes, and he started the first game he signed. He started straight away, and the loan was there for him to play, and Peterborough expected to use him, but it just didn't. For one reason or another. And I can't say I followed Peterborough's matches all too closely, but it clearly didn't, because there was that both sides. It was a mutually agreed termination of the loan. That was always in there. There was always with all the loans, they all had a January break clause on either side, and West Ham decided to exercise it because they want him to play. They rate him. They do think he's got a future, but he's never played regular week in, week out football. He needs that, and so I think going to MK Dons, who are doing well, they're in fourth, or they were in fourth when he left. I'm not sure how they got on the weekend, but they're in the playoff spots in League One. And the Peterborough manager is a former West Ham coach as well, so knows his game inside out. And I think that probably works for everyone. In fact, he's going to a coach who knows him, going to a coach who wanted him, and sees him as part of the first team. And I think it's big 6 months for him. I mean, he's not. He's 21. He's not old. He's by any stretch of the imagination, but he's at that point where 21, 22-year-olds, you need to be getting regular games. It's a big 6 months. I really think it is. If he can get regular football, maybe the step up, to a squad player for next season is on the cards. But even for him, you probably think if it doesn't happen in the next 6 months to 18 months, probably needs to look on for his own career.
James, you'll forgive me, Tom, you might know. Who's the guy who went and played in Belgium? His name has completely escaped me. The youngster who was in and around the squad for quite a while. I think I saw him. He was sitting right near to me at Genk. He went to Anderlecht.
Oh, what? Josh Cullen?
Josh Cullen, that was it. Yeah, that's the one. Is it similar vibes to him, Tom? Because I think a lot of fans got quite excited about him for quite a long time. And then it just got to that stage where he was like, oh, hang on, he's already old enough where he should have made it by now. And he's not like this youth academy player who's just about to break on the scene. He's like 24 and he should be good enough, and he's not, so he's off.
He's playing regularly for Anderlecht under Vincent Kompany, I believe now. They rate him over there.
Yeah, it's. I think with a lot of younger players, you give them a couple of years, but then once it gets to the 21, 22 age, you do kind of think, well, they need to. It's now or never, really. At the top level, but it's a big decision for them as well. If they decide to, whether it's Anderlecht, which is a great team with great history, but it's not Premier League level, and the player has to decide at some point, okay, am I going to take that step down? And you can have a look and in a completely different scenario, but someone like Jesse Lingard, for him, is like, if I leave Man United, I'm never going to get back to that level of club ever again. And it's kind of that break. And even, it's a totally different scenario, but you could see that with say a Josh Cullen or on a Conor Coventry. If he leaves West Ham now and he does settle for a championship side, it's very, very hard to get back into Premier League level, but not for a moment saying he can't do it, because he's 21. He's got plenty of football, plenty of time ahead of him. But it is harder to take the step down and come back up than it is to try and force your way through. And it's why so many players, whether it's Steve Sidwell or of that kind of Danny Drinkwater, a more recent one, when they get that chance of that big move, for us looking from the outside, you think, really, Drinkwater, you ever going to get a regular game for Chelsea? But you have to make the move, because you have to, as the professional, you want to try and prove yourself and try and make it. But Coventry, big 6 months. I really do think that.
Cupid works hard in February, but our friends at Manscaped are working harder than ever to ensure your Valentine's Day is one to remember. Don't turn this day of romance into Independence Day this year and get in control with their Performance Package 4.0, which includes the signature Lawnmower 4.0.
This February, join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code WeAreWestHam for 20% off and free shipping. Contrary to popular belief, love is not blind when you can't see past the love jungle. And Will, have you got any special routines for Valentine's Day? You're a single man.
I am, mate. Yeah. I mean, first of all, before I have to think about grooming, the hardest part is obviously getting a Valentine's date. But if so, we've used the Lawnmower 4.0 and my new personal favourite as the years tick on, Jonesy, is the Weed Whacker for all those awkward little hairs up me nose, as well as the ones downstairs, which you can get rid of with the Lawnmower 4.0. Both of those things come in the Performance Package 4.0. So if you want to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, you can get our exclusive offer. So just go to manscaped.com and use the code WeAreWestHam. That's all one word, WeAreWestHam, for 20% off plus free shipping. Yeah, fair enough. Well, look, Tom, you mentioned Jesse Lingard, Manchester United there. I don't know. I mean, we've covered it fairly extensively on the podcast already. You're obviously at the game on Saturday. Just give us some thoughts. What did you make of it? The whole game. The headline of the game was the decision at the end. What did it look like from in the ground?
It looked like West Ham were quite happy with the point fairly early on, which I go in there. I think that would have been a perfectly acceptable point. Attacking, it was not great. It really didn't offer a huge amount. It was, a couple of set pieces. There was the Souček had a decent chance from the Bowen corner, but other than that, it was. And I saw a lot of people criticizing Antonio, and I didn't really get that because it was like, well, what's he meant to do? The ball's just being banged at him from 80 yards, and he was so isolated. It wasn't his best game, but it wasn't of his fault really. He was just kind of there
victim of the
trying to
system.
deal. Yeah, and there was no support. There was nobody around him. But you look at what Man United brought off the bench: Martial, Cavani, Rashford, the three link up for a goal. West Ham brought Ryan Fredericks off the bench. There's the difference. And it was such a disappointing way to lose, and it's such a it's so gutting when it happens like that. And I've we speak to Moyes after every match and never ever spoken to him and seen him so down. He was properly. He was just pissed off. He was really pissed off, but he was also down. He was it clearly got.
That
to
was
him.
actually what he said, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was his first answer.
I'm pissed off.
Yeah, the question was. It was quite an open-ended one. What was it? It was something along the lines that must be a bit of a kick in the teeth. And he was just like, "Yeah, I'm really pissed off." And that was that for the answer. It was like, "Yeah, fair enough. Like you got every right to be." It was a couple of sloppy decisions. If Bowen had taken a better touch, if Fredericks' position had been slightly better, he got his header on it. If Creswell hadn't let Rashford run off him, all of these little things in the. Was in the 92nd minute, 93rd minute? It's gutting, but it just. And one of the questions after the game, and it was something that Moyes is normally quite good at avoiding giving a direct answer to, but one of them was about the substitutes. It's about being able to bring on these three attacking players, and you haven't got anything to do that. And he just did say, look. It was the not verbatim, but it was the equivalent of I'm not stupid. I can see the same. I can see the same issues as you. We are trying to sort it, but man. A year on from Haller leaving and still not a striker in. It's that
fallacy. It is. It's a fallacy.
Just on that, we'll move on to that. I think because he said after the game, I watched his post-match interview on the official website, and right at the end, and they didn't publish these quotes. In his interview when they published his interview word for word, but he said, "I'm going to work night and day, but I can't guarantee there'll be any new players in by the end of the window." And those quotes weren't published on the website, but he said them. And do you think that was almost like an admission in that I'm not confident that we're going to do the business that we really wanted to do?
They might not have been published on the club website. They were published on our website. He
They're
does.
published on mine as well.
Yeah, no, he does say he does always leave a caveat in when he's talking about transfers, and he did the same in the summer, and he did the same last January as well. And there is always that caveat of I can't guarantee anything, and not going to do things for the sake of of appeasing the fans. I'm only going to bring the right players in. I would be shocked if West Ham don't bring in a signing between now and the end of the window. It's too good an opportunity, and I think Moyes.
Based on what, Tom? Sorry to interrupt you. And I'm not expecting you to give us a transfer exclusive when it's your job to do that for Football London. But is that based on, you say you'll be shocked if we don't? Is that based on because it's so unfathomably ridiculous for a club of West Ham's size and where they are in the league to not add to the squad that desperately needs additions? Or is it because you know that actually they are working hard and there's a couple of things in the pipeline? Please let it be the second one.
It's a bit of both. It's a bit of both. It is just unfathomable that they wouldn't. But yeah, there are definitely talks ongoing with with other clubs, with agents, and West Ham are working on transfers. I agree with a lot of the fan sentiment that, well, what have you been doing since August? Like
Haller left since you mentioned.
Yeah, like I don't get why, and not just West Ham, why other clubs don't have transfers ready to go. Yeah, I think it was I can't even remember who it was, but somebody announced an incoming transfer on like the 30th of December, and that player comes in on January the 1st. And
it was Everton, they signed 2 really quickly, didn't they?
Yeah,
before January even started.
Exactly, and it's not Football Manager. I know there is more to it, and there's it's all well and good being like, well, we should have this player and they should come in on January 1st and all of that. And I know there's the domino effect, and I know there's various things, and especially with COVID as well, like that all does make a difference. But yeah, I will be shocked if West Ham don't bring somebody in, even if it is a loan signing. That worked out fine last season. I think there will be incomings, but like I'm gonna go verbatim with David Moyes here, but there's no guarantees.
Yeah, there's no shame in that, Jonesy, is there? Like the loan, people say, oh, it might only be a loan signing. Who cares? That worked spiffingly well with Jesse Lingard. The loans with options to buy, they're great as well. The same thing happened. Suchek, I think, was on that basis. Can't remember. I'm not sure about Sufal. But those deals are fine. Fans aren't really that arsed. It's not like, oh, we're not going to do any loan signings. Like, no one cares. Like, we obviously need some bodies. We're on the brink of doing something so good. And you mentioned there, Tom, Moisey obviously knows about it. It's staring everyone in the face, not just West Ham fans, all football fans in the face, that West Ham have got a really good starting 11. They've probably got 13, I would say, maybe 14 really good, outstanding players. Like first able to be picked in the starting 11 quality. But then there's just a huge gulf between them and the rest of them. It's not like you've got a load of 6 out of 10s who are okay to have on the bench. It's like, 13 or 14 brilliant first team quality players, and then some other blokes who've played football before. It's just not good enough, is it? Where we want to be, James?
Well, no, but as we've said, ever since Haller left, it's kind of, you're kind of waiting for him to go, right, okay, well, now's the summer. But we made some good signings, but it was always like, yeah, but there's still 1 or 2 deals still to be done in terms for the squad to be ready. No idea why we brought Crow in. I bet my curly-haired mate just hasn't got on the pitch. But then you look at that signing, you've got a player in there that's barely played. But then we've got 2 or 3 positions where we're crying out for players that would play. And you're right. Like when you I think it was against, I can't remember what game it was, but one team was bringing on like some class players, and then we're bringing on Yarmolenko and Masuaku to try and. No, that was it. It was the Leeds game, wasn't it? We're trying to get back in the game and get a late equaliser, and we're bringing in Masuaku and Yarmolenko to try and save the day. And like, what do you expect? You're not gonna do much with those sort of players. So, like I said at the beginning of the show, it would be unacceptable if no business is done between now and next Monday. For me, like completely and utterly unacceptable for the football club not to do any business.
Totally agree. Tom, a few questions there from what Jonesy's come out. The Alex Krall thing is just hilarious because Jonesy just absolutely hates it. He never gets a game or never gets a minute. What's just briefly? Do you know anything? Is there more to that? What's the score with that? Why is he not getting a bit more football?
I think a part of it was earlier in the season when he got COVID. Was right in the time when he would have got a few games. There was some Europa League matches in the Carabao Cup games because he started the first Carabao Cup game at Manchester United. I thought he had a decent game then as well, actually. And it was
brilliant. He was really good. Yeah,
and he was more than just a defensive midfielder. He was a real box-to-box player in that game. And I saw that one game. I'd seen him a couple of games in the Euros because there was a lot of talk. And obviously I was still working through the summer, so was the Czech matches were ones to watch. With the West Ham link as well, and he was better in that Old Trafford in the match against Manchester United than I'd seen him in the Euros. He was actually dropped one of the Euros games, or rested, rotated, whatever it was the manager decided, and then he got COVID and he missed the games that he would have played. He would have been in the Europa League. He would have played against Manchester City in the Carabao Cup, but he didn't just have. He's all jabbed up, but he wasn't. After his recovery, after his isolation period, he wasn't fully fit again. He was not like ready to come and play 90 minutes at top level standards. So he was feeling a bit of that, and that took a little while. And then he was back for the Dinamo game. He was there, and that was a little bit one of those where as Moyes said at the end of the game, because there was him and Noble were the senior players in that team, and Kral's young, but he's an established international player, and then they were having a lot of the kids around them, and Moyes said it was actually quite difficult for the senior players. They're having to get, and I actually thought the youngsters did really, really well. But one of his issues there was having to, you're relying a bit more on the senior players in that environment. But I think Kral was kind of a signing that was with the option to buy. It's kind of a free hit, really. If it doesn't work out, then you can send him back. But I think it really didn't help him. COVID and an injury, because he came back off international duty, was I guess that was the October window that he came back with COVID, and that just really hampered his time. But the fact that he hasn't played, he didn't play in the last cup game, thought he was a nailed on starter for that FA Cup game, give Rice and Souček, or one of Rice and Souček, a breather, but Moyes went strong in the FA Cup. But again, he's another one you expect to play against Kidderminster, but from then on to the rest of the season, you do wonder when he's going to get his opportunities, because Bryce and Souček do seem to be the two players who can just play every match week in, week out, and Kral will get the odd game in the cup if assuming that West Ham progress, and it depends who they get in the next round. But I don't know if it's just that Moyes doesn't fancy him, or he just doesn't think he's quite ready for it yet. Don't know. It'll be interesting.
He's been a bit unlucky as well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting come the summer because he won't meet the criteria for the obligation to buy. So it will be the choice of an option. They had, I don't know the exact number of games, but had he played a certain number of games or started a certain number of games, it was an obligation to buy. And he won't hit that. So it will become an option. And that will be the real sign of what Moyes thinks of him, is whether he actually takes that option up.
Just on that as well, I mean, when Declan Rice was suspended for the Palace game, you thought he'll go in, but instead, was it Noble or was it
Lanzini dropped
Lanzini
him?
Lanzini dropped him. The fact that Lanzini's getting in ahead of him suggests that Moyes probably doesn't fancy him.
Moyes does like Lanzini in that role. He actually said at the end of last season that he thinks he's lost a bit of his pace with the serious injury that he had, and Lanzini has said he still thinks number 10 is his best position, and it's where he's done really well. But it was the Chelsea game last season. He played the second half there, and he played 90 minutes against Burnley at Turf Moor. The back end of last season, I think it was 2-0.
Brilliant there. He was brilliant. Yeah.
And Moyes said after those games that he thinks that's his new position, that he's found a role for him there. So I like you. I thought Kral would start the Palace game, or was it the Palace game, or whatever it was around in December time. And there's just so many games, aren't there? Whichever one it was when Rice was suspended, I thought Kral would come in for him as well, but he decided to drop Lanzini in, and did the same against Leeds. Lanzini played there, and when Souček had COVID, and then Fornals came back in. And yeah, I'm kind of with you there, James, that it does suggest that he doesn't quite fancy Crowell more than, this is Lanzini's best role.
One more then, Tom, while we're on the sort of players in and out thing. Andrei Yarmolenko, baffling. It's just baffling. He's obviously not good enough anymore. Again, we're sort of trying to... Some people are really hard on him. I was chatting to Mark Webster. Some of the listeners might know him from Talk Sport, does the weekend morning shows. Great bloke, big West Ham fan. Chatting to him about Yarmolenko the other day, and I was sort of being quite reasonably lenient on Yarmolenko, saying, yeah, he's obviously not good enough. He doesn't cut it, blah, blah, blah. But that's he is what he is. It's not his fault. Like, the club have agreed to pay him that, get him out, like, whatever. It's on the club to now move him on. And he was just furious, just like, well, yeah, if you're one of the club's top earners, it'd be nice to even just come on and jog around for a little bit and pull up your stupid long sleeves and just like at least do some sprinting to make it look like you at least half earn your money. Is there any chance of him moving on this month, or is it a case of, even though the business clearly doesn't make sense, the finances, because he's one of the highest earners, if not the, I'm not sure, you might be able to correct me on that. Is it just that he's too expensive to move on, or does Moyes just think it doesn't make financial sense and I need the bodies?
I think both of what you just said. I think it's too expensive. Nobody's going to come in with a bid for him. They might come and take him for free, but they're not going to match his wages. So why would he then want to halve his wages to go off somewhere when he's got another 6 months left? And he does have a bit of experience. He is, he's a regular in the Europa League. He's come off the bench in the Premier League. I was actually just looking it up. I think he's played about 80 minutes of Premier League action over the course of this season. If he gets 10 minutes here or there, 20 minutes, I think, is the longest he's played in the league. But he's been all right in the Europa League. He's started, I think it's 4 of the matches, and I say all right. That's a bit generous. He scored against Rapid, and then he won the penalty against Rapid, didn't he? That was his two goal contributions for the season so far, came in the one game. But it's kind of his level, really. I think now he was playing against teams in Europe that aren't great, but they're not awful. He'll play against Kidderminster if he's still at the club, which I fully expect him to be until the summer, and then he'll move off. He is what he is. He's got a languid style. He's not a sprinter. He shouldn't be West Ham's go-to sub trying to get a goal in the Premier League, that's for sure. But I don't think there's too much harm. He's a popular guy at the club. I don't think there's too much harm in having him round. He is. Yeah, the players like him. He's a popular fella in the dressing room, and he's speaks a couple of languages. And holy shit, I've got Cameroon Comoros on in the background, and Comoros have just scored an absolute worldie. And they've got 10 men, and they've got an outfield. They've got their defender playing in goal because they've got no fit players. And they've just got
they've loads of COVID, haven't they?
Yeah, and one of their goalkeepers tested negative for this morning, but the African Federation still wouldn't let him play. But they've just scored an unbelievable free kick. Sorry, just ridiculously good goal. Sorry, Yarmolenko would never have scored that because it was with the guy's right foot. It was an absolute ridiculous hit.
That's interesting to hear he's popular though, to be fair. Not that he wouldn't be, but I just mean it's interesting to know that the players don't let a complete lack of footballing ability get in the way of whether they like someone at the training ground.
He absolutely isn't one who's kicking up a problem being on the bench. He's a squad player. He's a popular man. But yeah, I agree with you. He's not good enough. And the fact that he is one of the first subs off the bench when you're chasing a goal kind of sums up the lack of depth. Yeah.
Does anyone know what Rob Newman's been up to? Because it was great to have someone come in and arrive as like head of recruitment. He'd come from City, so you felt like he'd arrived with a nice contacts book. Nice little black.
Came in October.
Came in October. He's had plenty of time. I know it's linked to the fact we've not done any business, but I'm assuming he has been busy and brought a lot of names to the table. Do you know any more than that? Have you seen him about?
I've seen him at games, but not.
That's a start.
Yeah,
it's good. He's going.
We do still have the COVID protocols in, so it's not somebody I've ever spoken to or met or. I didn't see anybody at the under-23 game today, but that was just due to it's the same COVID protocols. We kept separate from the West Ham officials, and sometimes, quite often, Moyes is there at the games, but at the minute we're so far away that you just don't know who was there. And you could see in the seats there were a load of people who worked for West Ham at the match, but I couldn't tell you who any of them were. I even tried the little Zoom on my phone. It's not good enough. Couldn't see what he's actually doing. I don't know. I don't know. Like you say, he's coming in October. We're now at the end of January. I think what you said is probably a very safe assumption that he's brought names to the table, and the final say on transfers are now with David Moyes at the club. So I think and Moyes has said a couple of times that the club are willing to back him for the right players. So whether that's him being a club man and not speaking out against his bosses, as we've all got bosses, and you wouldn't publicly say too much about them or not. But yeah, what his actual role is, Rob Newman at the minute, I'm not entirely sure.
Is that true, Tom? Sorry, not when you say the final say at the club lays with David Moyes, is that true? Is that not questioning your judgment at all? Is that what you've been told by the club? Is that what you believe?
It's what I've been told by people close to the owners, is that Moyes is that Sullivan has taken a step back from transfer dealings, and it is Moyes and Newman who will be in charge of negotiations and getting things over the line.
Fair enough. Right, Tom, I've already kept you for longer than I said I was going to, and we really appreciate your time, especially as we're interrupting your viewing of Comoros against Cameroon, scoring some absolute worldies, apparently. What do you think then for the rest of the season? We obviously established that we need to make some signings, but it's been one of those shows where it's a little bit like, because of the results that have gone before. But ultimately, we're still on the cusp of something fantastic. The Europa League knockout games are the most exciting thing that's happened to West Ham for a long time. I personally, that's going to define the season, what happens with the rest of the Europa League. What do you think, though? They're still in the FA Cup, obviously, doing okay in the league. Top four probably officially dead after the weekend we decided earlier on. And then the Europa League, what's your thoughts sort of from now until the rest of the season? The end of the season, even.
I agree with you. Like a Europa League run, and getting already into the last 16, get through that, you're in a quarter final, and then it's only 7 matches to win the tournament. 6 to get through to the final. It's a cup game. It depends who you get, doesn't it? If you end up with Borussia Dortmund in the quarterfinals, then you're going to go in as second favourites. They're Dortmund are such a good team, but you could also you could get Rangers. Dortmund could lose to Rangers. You get Rangers, then you fancy that, and then you get through and you're in the quarterfinals, and who knows? But yeah, the Europa League is where the excitement's at. Just like for you guys as fans, and for me going over and covering it, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant, and love it. And I'm just desperate for West Ham to qualify for Europe again next season as well. And I said my prediction at the start of the season was a top 8 finish, quarterfinals of the Europa League, and I thought that would be and hopefully a cup run. And the fact that you put out Manchester United, Manchester City in the Carabao Cup. It's such a difficult run to get those two and then follow it up with Spurs when Sunderland was still in the hat type of thing. It's tough. So beat Kidderminster and then who knows? Like it's one of those. If you don't get City or Chelsea or something out the hat, all right, bad example actually, having put City out of the Carabao Cup, but you would always fancy you go into all of those games as second favourites. But the Europa League is just where it's at, and position in the league right now, top 6 finish would still be phenomenal. Like it would still be a fantastic season, even if you've spent a couple of months in the top 4. Top 6 is still a brilliant achievement, and the fact that you'd be doing that ahead of one of Arsenal, Arsenal, Spurs, Manchester United, most likely, it would just make it another superb season. And Moyes' aim actually is he's looking at the points tally rather than the position in the league. His aim is to beat the 66 points of last season. I know going into the Manchester United game at the same point of last season, West Ham were 1 point short of where they were. So they're still pretty much level with this time 12 months ago. So beating 66 points, then that's progress. And where that leaves you in the table, kind of, that relies on other teams a bit. But yeah, top 6 finish and a quarter-final spot in the Europa League, I'd still take that, still be absolutely loving that.
Absolutely brilliant, Tom. Yeah, I think we're me and James are both of the same opinion. Tom Clark there from Football.London, the West Ham correspondent. Tom's absolutely brilliant. I'm sure most of you already follow him on Twitter anyways, at _Thomas J. Clark over there. Those of you, excuse me, Tom, those of our listeners who follow you already probably know you as the journo who wears the lucky straw hat. Just for those of you who don't know or that haven't got the chance to hear you explain it, what is that about?
I'm bored. I get a really sunburnt head. And in the summer during the friendlies, West Ham are playing some great football, but we were in places like Dundee, which, although it's, up in Scotland, I found myself in an open terrace and came away with a really, really sunburnt head. So I put my hat on, and then West Ham won like the next 7 matches in a row after I did that, and it just became a running thing. And it's bloody freezing at the minute, so I take it with me and put it on from time to time. But I keep getting shit that West Ham are losing because I'm not wearing it. So you try going to a game in Vienna when it's -3 wearing a straw hat. It's really cold, but yeah, it's just gone from there. And then I'm a little bit of a stats geek, and I do keep a record of all the matches I go to and all the attendances. But yeah, started keeping a running track of whether I was wearing the hat or whether it was just in my bag, and then seeing it correlate with the results. So yeah, that's where that came from.
Excellent, mate. Excellent. Well, look, keep the lucky hat on for the rest of the season. Tom, it's absolutely brilliant to have you on. Thanks for giving us your time. Loving your coverage this season on Football.London since you replaced Sam Ingersoll. And yeah, it's been great stuff. We really appreciate giving us your time and your insight on the We Are West Ham podcast. Tom Clark there, West Ham correspondent from Football.London. Go and give him a follow because he's absolutely brilliant.